Hey everyone, it's Aisha Love, founder of Multidimensional You. Welcome to this third part of the three-part video series on the healing renaissance. So first off, news flash, I was informed there are more videos to come. So we'll be taking kind of a deep dive into some of these areas of this huge sea shift that our civilization, that our entire planet has begun. Now, I realize in the early days, if, nose to the grindstone, you've just been kind of working in a short range of frequencies, not much seems like it's changing. But for those of us who, have endured an ongoing awakening for the better part of the last couple decades, the signs are everywhere. And the greatest sign is the evolution of our own identity and the work that we're doing. For example, the 8-8 virtual clinic on healing with harmonics, mind-blowing, okay? So the technology and the work that I'm bringing through is continuing to evolve and advance at unprecedented levels. So that's what's amazing, and kind of the paradox of going beyond conscious and becoming multidimensional is that you don't see the advances in technology coming because they're not linear. Yeah, can you feel that? Those of you a little more attuned to energy and sensitive to energy because you've cultivated that, you've cleared out your space from all the noise, you can feel it, can't you? My field is not the same as it was even 6 months ago, let alone 5 years ago. So that's really good news, right? That the technological advancements aren't something that requires a ton of R&D, research and development, a ton of linear years to innovate and perfect, because they're coming from the level of our multidimensional self and its composite wisdom and knowledge. And so the advancements are literally out of this world, right? And incredible. Now, the challenge will be, and maybe some of you here are experiencing this, hitting the skeptic wall, hitting the limiting belief wall of, well, it can't really be that revolutionary. I mean, things take time. We have to test things, right? We have all these kind of antiquated belief systems around how our civilization and how our human race can evolve, okay? So that is something that's been interesting for my human ego to navigate, both within kind of my own inner skeptic programming, but also as I've been interdirected to go out into the world and approach different leaders to bring this work out and apply it in its applied form, okay? So it's not about let's study it a bunch, but let's take a look at it and let's, what my inner directive is, let's get going with applied technology. Let's apply the consciousness-based innovations and solutions. And just like we talked about in the virtual clinic, for example, the need is so great, and it's only going to get greater as we go through more disruptive waves. That's all a really good thing, right? When you kind of pull back and you think, gosh, what are we all having to go through? Well, if it's to serve our evolution, you know how souls think, right? And it is not how humans think. If something is going to serve your growth at the soul level, right, yeah, take a deep breath. I know that many of you, just like myself, are going through a massive expansion by way of a major deconstruction of your identity and all the different facets that touches. So whether you're in the beginning of that and just starting to realize it and having your oh shit moment of, oh my gosh, I can't believe I have to face this, or you're, maybe hopefully on the other end of it. I feel like I'm just starting to come out the other side of mine. I just want you to know, I feel you. These are really intense times and you are not alone. Okay. Like I've talked about before, it's a whole backlog, not just of trauma, but of these, this is a perfect segue. They're telling me inversions. Okay. So here's what I was told to share as part of this third message. So we're going to talk about a person's sphere of influence. Focus on how a person's sphere of influence is up for redesign, or what you might consider reformatting. So much of the way people operate is to take incoming energies and react to them. Now it's time to flip the script, as I like to say. The inversion is broadcasting loving intent and coherence into the field via your multidimensional structure. In this way, you become a high vibrational vortex of influence in ways you can make sense of. People feel good around you. That's easy to understand, right? And ways that go beyond your current understanding. Parentheses, you are reshaping the plasmic fields of interconnectedness so greater unity based in harmony can occur between systems of reality. Did you catch all that? It doesn't matter, right? A lot of the intellectual understanding is going to bypass you anyway. It has to come from within. So it doesn't really matter if you intellectually understand that. I still don't. Because in a lot of ways, there's no mental framework here for it. We didn't get taught the science or the physics for this. And some of the physics that are available, I've studied it, but again, it's going to go way beyond our need to know, our need to understand, which is all an attempt to kind of put in a box. Like we talked about, it's a trauma response to try to be able to label everything and know everything versus just be and allow that to emanate something different. So this inversion means that anyone committed to creating a more coherent, loving, broadcast from your field, from your heart, from your intention, means that everyone's a healer. So I've been catching myself being like, oh yeah, and this program can be for that group, and they just keep laughing. My team just keeps laughing, the greater team, the greater collectives I'm a part of, plural. Because they're like, you're not still like integrating the memo, right? Everyone can be a healer. And everyone is a healer, which means making whole and coming out of fragmentation, and that directly influences the field simply by your presence. And even non-presence in the physical. Doesn't mean you have to circulate among a whole bunch of people, right? Or be on a stage or have a huge audience. You're literally broadcasting those templates into the field, the unified field. Okay, so to finish the direct transmission I've received, everyone is a healer because everyone is capable of cultivating this inversion. Remember, the inversion is not constantly reacting to everything coming and bombarding you and feeling, like you're in a pinball game, but broadcasting out, So reacting versus creating, emanating. They are no longer reacting to a self-perpetuating reality loop, even by resisting it, right? So we can react and, be in that pinball game and be in resistance to something and fight against something, which just perpetuates same old patterns and cycles versus transcending and surpassing and going into creating something new. We've talked a lot about that on this channel. So now they are creating, expressing, emanating a new reality from within. Okay, so I realize that could be kind of heady stuff, but hey, are you sending out loving, good vibes or, judgmental, resentful, bitter, icky vibes? And actually, I'm being kind of given a timeout right now. They're kind of interrupting and saying, hey, you can reduce it and be reductionist in that way, but don't shortchange the consciousness-based, multidimensional-based technological advances that you were referring to earlier. So I definitely feel like I am an advocate. I'm meant to be an advocate for this work. So I listen, right? And when that kind of timeout came in, I instantly understood, right? And this is what we're talking about, is just this ability to have these kinds of communications with higher dimensional collectives that are part of your own multidimensional structure to guide you in ways that are very precise while you're in a physical experience. So I know a lot of you have similar assignments, and there's a huge pull on my heart right now, okay? And that tells me that some of you are being called by that assignment, and there's a yearning, and you may not know what it is. You may have followed it to a certain extent, but you weren't willing to go further. And so just, there you go. So work with my field. My field can help bring all that down, and all that resistance, especially internalized resistance, there we go, just left. This is what we're talking about in terms of the advances. I see what they did. That was a total setup. That was well played, golf club. So there you go. This is exactly what we're talking about. If you didn't feel anything, either that message wasn't aligned for you, or you just may have more clearing work to do to be able to become much more sensitive to the field work. I won't even call it energy work because it goes beyond that. We're working at the level of the multidimensional field and structure. And so, when I look back at all the different people I've worked with in my emergence experience program, sure, there have been maybe a concentration of people who've done, your Reiki masters, that sort of thing. But when I look back, it is a wide swath and diverse population of people. It's been engineers and doctors and lawyers, and teachers and ministers and stay-at-home moms and art teachers and police officers. And I could just keep going. It's kind of cut a wide swath of different demographics and different professions. And so as I was scratching my head thinking about that, I realized it's because if we silo ourselves and say, I'm a healer and they're not, we might as well quit the game right now. So this is the big, shift in our understanding of what is really at play during this healing renaissance. And so much of it has to do with taking ourselves out of these little weird boxes that we've been conditioned to put ourselves in. Goodness gracious, we are just not meant to be siloed into tiny little, if you've done your growth and awakening and expansion, like trying to go back to something is like trying to stuff yourself into a shoe that doesn't fit, or like a little tuna can, and there's just not going to happen, right? And so when I look back at that diverse group of people, I'm realizing that the one common denominator was that they all wanted greater freedom of expression of who they were, best summed up by one of the engineers I worked with, where he came to realize he had given away his power. He wasn't using his true voice. And he realized, you know what? I am, period. Not, I am an engineer. I am a father. I am this is what, I am an athlete. We self-identify in these ways that really can keep us limited. So what I'm being shown now, let's see if we can do this and translate, because I'm given information in a way that is not necessarily like a linear sentence. It's like a whole knowing comes in, and then I'm, charged with translating it for you. So what I'm being shown now, that's very helpful. Somebody just showed me origami. So the beautiful origami, and this is what we do is we fold ourselves to look a certain way and present a certain shape. And then it's as if we've forgotten, but wait a minute, there's all this folded surface, there's all this folded matter. And if you actually take the time to pull that apart, you realize, wait a minute, it's not just that form. And guess what? You can reshape it and fold it into a different form. Yeah, that feels really good, doesn't it? I'm just going to let you all, some of you are really having an experience. I can feel it right in here, especially the sixth chakra. Yeah, so basically what we're doing in real time, unintentionally, it's just going to happen because here we are with the technological advances. You're unfolding yourself. Oh, doesn't that feel good? Yeah, that's better, right? And then the beautiful thing is, as you do this work, and I've watched many people who've worked with me do this, they claim a much more aligned, expansive, authentic, happy, they get brighter, their eyes get brighter, some of them, their skin even begins to glow, a version of you, because you're not all boxed up and folded up into a tight little something, right? Okay, so basically what I'm being told is that it's time to embrace the healer within for all of us and restore ourselves to wholeness so that we can shift our sphere of influence. So, you think you aren't a healer? Think again. And I just have to say, I love busting up this healer trope. As if like we all have to, do life a certain way and, wear patchouli and burn sage and, cut the crap, right? There are so many different ways to show up in your sphere of influence that, let's be honest, like so much of those rituals, and I'm not putting them down, I'm just saying, if that's your idea of what a healer is, oh my goodness, we need to expand that, right? Like it's for everyone and it's for all stripes, because let's face it, a lot of different subgroups of civilization just cannot hear someone with whom they don't resonate. So we need healers showing up, coming out of fragmentation and creating wholeness across all walks of life to be able to reach so many more people who will be much more able to hear and feel what is coming from that person's field than, you know, if someone in a conventional trope of healer were to show up. Frankly, it scares people. It triggers them. They have all these ideas and judgments, right? So there's resistance and the door closes versus, oh, you know, it's just Jim Bob, or it's just, you know, the vice president of the company, you know, when they suggest laughter yoga. Hey, that was a good idea. Look at all the productivity and look at all the new ideas and creativity that got inspired, right? So now where the rubber meets the road and we hit brass tacks is this journey I've taken so many people on, and because I've been doing it myself my whole life, is being willing to have the courage to be much more of your authentic self. Not because, you know, you want to self-identify as enlightened, but because you truly are. There's a big difference. Yeah, something's happening there. Do you feel that? Yeah, let that run through. And Hummingbird just showed up. And it was 2:22 on this segment of the video. And so let's talk about, maybe you have identified as a healer. This is where I'm being directed now. What I'm being shown is, don't get too complacent or comfortable with, oh yeah, I know, I'm a healer. I've been at this for years. Because guess what? You're being called up to expand even more and evolve even more. Oh, I felt some resistance in the field. There's fear there. But I have this thing and I created this thing and it's working for me. But is it though? Can you feel it? Something more is being called. Okay, they're showing it to me. All right, this is helpful. So human nature and the way we've been conditioned in modern society is to try to lock it down. Lock it down for safety and security. You know, and then, okay, I have it. I feel good. This is it. And I definitely get it. Believe me, I get it. For someone who's constantly like ripping the rug out and reformatting and creative destruction and all of that, believe me, there are days when I'm like, enough. I just want my four corners, four stable, foundation. But if you don't rework the foundation and evolve and get out of your, it may be a much bigger box than you used to be in, it's still a box. You're still limiting yourself. I think many of you know this better than I do. When your soul wants you to grow and go beyond, first it comes a whispering, and then it comes a knocking, and then it comes a pounding, and then it's kicking the door down, and we're having to go through the deconstruction a little bit of the harder way. Like, I'm looking back through some of my own deconstruction events, and I realized there was just probably no other way that my soul was going to orchestrate that, because I just was in too much resistance, So just feel into that if you've been identifying that way, and just, no pressure, more just like actually let go. So what I'm being shown is if more and more people can let go of the role and delegate more and create more structure underneath you, because you're meant to start to add the upper levels to your structures now, to what you've created here, to your manifest reality. And I also see a lot of collaboration and joining together so that there's complementarity. And so you're not trying to just do it all. I'm listening. Okay, so let's get down to kind of next steps. What I'm being shown is, if you sense that something's calling you, you're not sure what it is, and you're willing to let go of all your preconceived notions about, I'm not a healer, and all that resistance. Also, if you are feeling like, oh no, it's time to definitely evolve this, if something else is calling, and I'm good at that, I've done it before, take a weekend, take a week, put yourself in a personal retreat. I used to do this all the time. My life feels like one giant personal retreat right now, but for the last several years. But I guess that kind of makes sense now that I'm thinking about what's being recommended here. Because the issue they're showing me is that, you get so caught up in the distraction of your current creations and what you're currently charged with that you may be missing the bigger picture and the expansion and the evolution that's wanting to come through. So I used to just take weekends, and so much would come in, and then I'd come out of that and go, wow, okay, and then go implement that. Yeah, see, that feels really good. I can feel so much of, this level of human embodiment is fun because I can feel it in real time. So I'm recording this, right? And then it has to get edited, and then it gets published, and then it gets emailed out. But we're beyond linear, so I can feel the happiness so many of you just had at the suggestion of a retreat, a suggestion of taking a step back. Like, right, oh my gosh, I haven't done that for myself in a long time. I'm overdue. Or, I'm going on family vacations, but it's not time for me. So it's, again, more distraction. See, we got somebody in the insectoid family calling it out. You got my back, buddy. So as we retreat and reformat ourselves, and then we come back, whether it's a weekend or, I don't know, a year, 3 years, that inversion and bringing yourself back into wholeness absolutely revolutionizes the way you influence your sphere. And so here we come, they're showing me the crux of this message is being a healer is fundamentally about influencing your particular sphere in a way that brings greater harmony and connection and presence and unity. They just gave me an interesting notion. What if there was, in cultures worldwide, there was a notion that one person in each family group, however that's defined, I realize it's larger or smaller depending on what country you're in, it was just understood that one person had to take on the role of, let's say spiritual advisor, shaman, intuitive, and that they would bring information to the family group. And the family group respected that position in a way that modern society has tended to do the opposite, right? And I know a lot of indigenous cultures around the world have this, right? I mean, that's why we have shamans and medicine people. But imagine if it was every family. So now all of us, did you feel that? I just felt your solar plexus shift. So all this time you feel like you've been, maybe like, oh gosh, going up against the family, up against. What if you're the wise counselor in the family? And that's a totally different proposition. And again, I realize laterally, like verbally, it may not be open to anything you say, but you can't argue with your presence and who you are becoming and who you've become. Get a high five down there. So again, I'll reference my own experience over these last few years and watching how my technology and my work has evolved. And interestingly, the work occurs in seconds, maybe minutes, usually seconds. And there's no talking involved. I narrate a little bit just to keep people's, egos comfortable, like we're not just all in silence. But the effects are tangible and felt, but rarely quantifiable in the way that, people can describe it, because it's going way beyond our mental processes. And isn't that a relief? We don't need extra talking or thinking. So you being willing to do, face your shadow, do your shadow work, go find and reintegrate your exiled aspects, all the, past life leftovers and all that good stuff, right? There's just this whole diverse array of work we end up doing within ourselves to become much more coherent and whole and what we might think of as healed, right? Although I would say it's an ongoing process. I'm not sure we're ever going to be done with it while we're in human form working with the particular, set of codes and genetics and historical trauma experiences we inherited in these vehicles. So don't worry if you're, thinking about making healing your paid profession. You're actually getting in a really good time. You're not going to go out of business anytime soon, right? Actually, the demand's going to skyrocket. But I realize a lot of you aren't interested in turning it into a profession. You're much more interested in doing the alchemy within to see what you can affect within your company, your system, your organization or systems, your family, or just even for your own benefit as just a person at large in the world because you feel driven in that way. So let's get into, so they're bringing me to expound upon this idea of what it means to broadcast wholeness into the unified field. So what we're talking about is a template, and I'm hearing template override. So think of it this way. They're showing me this example. You go to a restaurant and there's a bunch of old, worn, ratty menus, and it's hard to read. Some of the areas are smudged out. People are doing their best they can with it. And then someone comes in and says, look, I have a freshly laminated clear set. Here you go. And the menu's been updated. There are things on there that weren't on the old menu. That's a really fun, lighthearted way to explain what we're talking about when we bring ourselves into, a more activated, expansive state, and then offer a new menu of options to the world. It's really opening up a new set of possibilities because you yourself have unfolded yourself. You've, taken yourself out of that rigid form that you felt you needed to conform to. And just that process alone is saying, oh, right. Like, two menu pages stuck together. And then you realize, wait, there's so much more. There's so much more choice. There's so much more possibility. Okay. And so what's really cool about that is that you don't need to say a bunch of affirmations or talk about it or write a speech and deliver it. Your field is simply communicating that and inputting that into, maybe the mainframe. And so it's being uploaded by those who are ready and willing to receive it. Pretty cool, huh? This is why even when they said add override, I went, really? I'm used to doing overrides all the time in my multidimensional field work on the planet, but I never thought about it in terms of just you broadcasting a much less dense and distortion freer template is an override of sorts. Now, feel free to talk about it and feel free to share the message. Feel free to make a business about it. Of course, that's all wonderful. But here's what's really cool is it's not necessary because we're not relying on the mental processor to reach other mental processors who frankly are in a ton of resistance, right? Pretty cool. So they're asking me to kind of wrap up here with this understanding that why do this? I mean, in addition to just living a much more expansive, free, happy, joyful, abundant life. Why? Why do this? And what I'm getting, it's just at a real simple, basic level, is because you want to. Your soul wants to, you want to. So why not? Now, I could give you a much bigger, intergalactic, interdimensional perspective of this is a huge time of restoration and reclamation and repair. So it definitely fits in line with that. But you don't necessarily need to know about any of that. All you need to know is I just want to do that. That feels right to me. That feels aligned to me. And that should be enough. And so what I'm being shown is you can't begin to conceive of some of the outgrowth and outcomes of engaging in this process of inverting fragmentation to wholeness, responding and reacting to the world versus creating the world from within and emanating a new reality via your plasmic field of consciousness and the incredible templates it's able to broadcast. New creations that won't come from any sort of horizontal or lateral vibrational reference point. It's coming from within your multidimensional structure. And so it's presenting solutions that go far beyond anything our mental processor could come up with far better to take your, let's use the example of a company, go into retreat, go into this type of activation. I call it a meditation because that's the easiest box to put it in that people sort of understand. But I've recently changed my title because I was like, man, shaman doesn't fit. Even intergalactic shaman doesn't fit anymore. Channel doesn't cut it. Intuitive doesn't cut it. And I realized what captures it most essentially and comprehensively is multidimensional catalyst. And so you go into this catalyst process and come out a completely different being. And so all those parts of you that you unfolded that aren't even in physical form now get to inform physical reality. Is this making sense? I see it's making sense. The body and the heart are able to process it better than this. I've said this on this channel many times. A lot of what I say might make me seem really smart, but it's not coming from here. Like my mental processor in real time, a lot of the time is like, wow, really? Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That wisdom is coming from a different plane, but it's all part of the multidimensional structure. And so, yeah, the IQ, I don't even know if you can measure it. I don't think we have standards for that kind of intelligence yet on the surface of the planet here. Yeah, and so the big why comes down to the tagline I've used for years, which is, let's revolutionize what it means to be human. But not in a way that means we, oh great, we have, anti-gravitic technology and we have spaceships and hey, that's all great and fun. Believe me, let's go portal hopping. But it's much more about who we've become in the process. So I think some tangibles are better at decision making, right? We don't get caught in indecision limbo because there's clarity around the energetic of different scenarios and different choices. And some of them are really stark and it's going to be really easy to be like, yep, nope, yes, no. And getting out of second guessing and all of that. So better decision making, better solutions, quite frankly. So ideas and creative inspiration come that just otherwise would not be available. So better outcomes across every metric, and then a bunch of metrics I think we don't even know to measure yet. Okay, well, I hope all of this was resonant and helpful. And I'm just tuning in. I feel like we kind of hit all the messages that really wanted to come through today. The other part that's coming through is just to take stock of how far you've come. Right? Not get too forward leaning and always trying to, if anything, this journey is much more about rebalancing ourselves into sitting back a little bit, being in our center. And then the most amazing thing where everything starts to come to you rather than you chasing it. And I've definitely experienced that in the last couple of years. I mean, in amazing ways, right? The Luminary Leadership book, that was an invitation. The anthology is quarterly, and that quarter's theme just happened to be Luminary Leadership. Would you like to participate? Told to write a book last year, interdirected. Next day, contacted on LinkedIn. You look like an interesting thought leader. Have you ever considered writing a book? And there we go. The book's about to come out here early this fall. So that is another huge reason, I think, to shift and make these internal shifts and embrace this multidimensional technology is because you become much more of a magnet and an attractor. And you want to talk about the ultimate technological advancement, right? You want to talk about incredible efficiency, right? You don't have to go chase down potentials, possibilities, and opportunities. They literally come right to you. Why? Because the way that you have reformatted yourself creates a magnetic invitation to all that now is in resonance with that much greater, it's the more expansive template, but I'm being shown, they're like, just slow down and we'll give it to you. Okay. So we paint by numbers is what I'm being shown. So that means it's not linear. You don't like paint this line and then that line and then up above it, right? It's over here and then here and then here and then here. This is how, as we reformat ourselves multidimensionally, we're basically creating a composite picture within that then pulls in whatever wants to put itself into manifest form in the exact sequence and quantity, and like almost they're showing me like the measurements of it. It's like step-by-step instructions in a holistic way. So we have to work a lot with metaphor to try to describe these processes, because again, I don't know about you, but I didn't take multidimensional physics in high school. It's still not available here yet. And so that's kind of this final message, is the technological advancement so that you can enjoy, well, gosh, a life like this, right? Where there's not so much hustling and bustling, not to say there isn't a time for some of that, but it's impulses. And then your time in this kind of space, right, becomes extended. I still pinch myself every morning I come out here, and the beautiful birds are flying out, and sometimes the fog. This morning I got up so early, the stars were still out, and I just kind of go, whoa. And then I smile because my team just says, well done, right? The outside is always a reflection of the inside. And this is my calling, to share this with the world, because it makes me so happy to share it. It makes me feel like a little kid. Like, yes, your imagination is real. It has like real power. And you can do amazing things, and you can help others, and we can all bring ourselves a little bit closer to home. That good old heaven on earth we've been talking about for years. And then, so the final thing that's just coming in is I can hear some of you going, well, how do I do that? Some of you know, you're like, oh yeah, that thing I was going to do. Yep. All right. Never mind. Going, retreat, whatever, you know. But for others, I can feel it. There's a little bit of that consternation of like, okay, that all sounds great, but like, how do I do that? Number one, call it in. Just say, I'm open to receive it, and I will take action when it shows up. So, I was listening to an old podcast interview. Somebody interviewed me, and they had been a client, and I had forgotten that she had told me this story when she first started working with me. She said that she was ready for a new teacher. She called it in and, or just put it out there. And then in 1 week, 3 people mentioned my name to her, and she just went, okay. I work with my signs in 3s generally. And so, I like my massage therapist in North Carolina, something came through for her. I said it. She's like, oh, thank you. Okay. Now I know I need to go do that trip. Right. So it's like, in a sense, you already know, because you probably want to, but you've got all these stories and resistance, right? Or maybe you're not even at the story level. You're just in resistance energetically. So some of these, broadcasts and activations we just did today should move that energy, nature. Spend time, feet on the ground, out in the woods, by the ocean, in water, whatever makes you happiest, or whatever you have locally. Even if you just have a tree in a park, trees have some serious energetic wisdom, and they can help you like just sit your back against it and just let it all go down into the ground. Just let go of whatever, you feel like is getting in your way. And then in a week or so, I'll be reopening enrollment for a couple of my emergence experience tracks. So the activation track will be opening up. That's year 2 after awakening. And then year 3, expansion. So if you've already done activation and you've been like, I think it's time to circle back now on that spiral, both of those tracks are opening in a couple weeks. And they'll be open for a little bit, a few weeks. Kind of keep that open enrollment going. But probably by the end of September, we'll see who's in the cohort, and then we'll journey together for the year. And you won't be the same person at the end of the year, in a really good way. All right, so look for that information coming soon, and leave a comment, maybe write in, but I think leave a comment under the video, because I noticed that when more people are, sharing feedback and stories, it really helps other people. So if you're willing to this time, leave a comment with how this resonated for you, even if it was just one small piece of it that you went, ooh, light bulb went off. And, you might also use the YouTube comment space to make a commitment and a declaration to the world so that you won't backpedal on yourself again. And we will lovingly embrace and support you there. It is a safe space. All negative garbage just gets yanked, because I don't know about you, but I just don't let people with muddy boots come into my house. You know what I mean? All right. Wishing you all a wonderful rest of your day. I love you very much.